What's going on, guys? What's happening YouTube? You've tuned into Rules for Rebels, and we're going to be talking real estate today. Whether you're looking to buy your first property to live in yourself, whether you're looking to buy an investment property, or whether you're looking to get started in the real estate business of being a landlord, flipping houses, whatever it may be, this may be of interest to you. This is a change that Fannie Mae has recently made, kind of a new program they're rolling out called the HomeReady Accessory Unit Income and Border Income. HomeReady Accessory Unit Income and Border Income Flexibility. So I know this channel we normally talk about selling on eBay, selling on Amazon, starting businesses, etc. But I think this kind of falls into the category of entrepreneurship. One of the industries or hustles, whatever you want to call it, that's made more millionaires than anything else. One of the things that's made more people wealthy than anything else is real estate. I currently have one rental property. I'd like to pick up two more in the near future. They say you make money when you purchase a place. It's not the money you put into it. It's not what time does. Like, you make money when you actually buy the place. You have to get in a property that has promised to appreciate, but also you have to get in it under market value, ideally. And so it's something that kind of takes a while. So I've been probably looking for like the past year, and I just haven't come across anything that's really suited my fancy, for lack of a better word. But I know, us millennials, a lot of people, the levels of home ownership are very low. Millennials are struggling with student loan debt. The cost of housing is appreciating much faster than wages are increasing, so it's making it harder for millennials to buy homes. That coupled with student loan debt, it makes it a real challenge. One of the things I'm seeing a lot of people become interested in is the idea of house hacking. Now, house hacking essentially means buying a property and making some money off of that property to help either subsidize your mortgage or help you live completely free even. Now, this could be buying a single-family home and renting out bedrooms on Airbnb. It could be buying a single-family home and moving a couple buddies in with you, moving people from Craigslist in with you. Or it could be buying like a property with a coach house or an in-law suite and renting that out. There are all different types of ways that you can do this. My first house, I bought house hacking. I bought it in my early 20s. And I'm not saying it's easy to buy real estate. I'm not saying, it doesn't require you having some money in the bank. But there are a lot of programs out there. It's probably not as hard as you think. When I bought my first home, it was only, I think list price was $94,000. I think I wound up paying about $86 after everything shook out. But I was making $13 an hour, $14 an hour when I bought the house. So, don't think that, oh, well, I only make X amount of money, I could never buy a house. It's probably more attainable than you think. One other funny thing, I actually, on paper, to go to closing and to go through the underwriting process, I had to show something like $7 grand or $9 grand in the bank. But when it actually came to closing time, I actually left the closing table with a check for $1,700. I didn't put a penny of my own money down, and I actually walked away with money. I have a fantastic mortgage broker. Mortgage brokers are typically licensed in one state, so I would offer his info to you guys, except most of you guys aren't in Illinois. If anybody is in Illinois and is looking for a good mortgage broker, my guy is a bomb, man. Like, he literally is the best. I've used him on 2 properties thus far. But he got me into a bunch of like awesome programs. There was some program where to kind of like encourage homeownership amongst lower income people, and it was like if you were making under 50 grand, there were like all these perks and things like that. So that's how I wound up walking away with money from the closing table. Plus, I didn't have to pay. I didn't actually take advantage of the program because I was initially thinking about maybe flipping the property or something. And I think to take advantage of this, you had to live in the property for 3 years or 5 years. And if you didn't, you would have to pay back the money. But essentially, I could have not paid property taxes for like 3 years or 5 years or something like that. Like I said, I never wound up filing the papers and taking advantage of the program, but my mortgage broker did get me set up with that. Essentially, what this Fannie Mae program is, when you buy a home, there's certain, they'll look at all the debt you have, they'll look at your income, they'll look at money in the bank, and then underwriters, look into their crystal ball, run their numbers, do whatever they do, and, there's certain rules, like not more than X amount of your income can go towards your housing payment. So I don't know what it is, maybe it's 37% or whatever, but if you make $1,000 a month and uh, the mortgage is going to be $700, well, that's 70% of your income. You can't do that. So, there's certain rules with underwriting, and what this Fannie Mae HomeReady accessory unit income and border income flexibility allows you to do. I think it's perfect for kind of house hackers, although there are a lot of limitations in it. I think this will only work for certain types of situations. But maybe it will help some of you guys out, and that's kind of why I wanted to make this video. I don't claim to be a real estate expert. Like I said, I got one rental property. I've done pretty well with it. Plus, I got my home that I live in now, and I'm looking to get a couple more. I've tried to look into and research and educate myself on real estate, but again, I don't claim to be an expert. So maybe some of you guys can fill me in on this even. But essentially, what this does, typically, like when I bought my first home, let's say hypothetically I wanted to move, but I wanted to keep that first home as a rental property. Now, typically I think how it works is I would need 2 years of tax statements showing that property brought in money. So, in my house, I rent it for $1,400 a month. The mortgage is $700. And so I think, I forget what that works out to, like 15 grand a year, 16 grand a year in income. Now, obviously, that doesn't all go into my pocket. A good chunk of that goes to paying the mortgage and property taxes and everything else, but I still walk away with about $500 at the end of the month. And I've been renting my property for 3 or 4 years. When I bought my house now, and or if I were to go buy another house, I got 3 or 4 years income tax statements showing income on that property, so I can use that property as an asset as opposed to that property being a liability. Now, let's just say, for example, that I hadn't been renting the house for 2 years or any time at all, and I want to move into another home, but I want to keep that first home as a rental. Even if I have tenants lined up, even if I have tenants who've been in there for 6 months or maybe even a year, that first home is actually a liability against me, because until I have 2 years, and some lenders may only require one, it may depend on your state, it may depend on a lot of things, but hypothetically in this scenario, when they look at my debt to income ratio, that first property, even though I've been renting it out for 6 months and I have money coming in, I'm not able to show that as income, and it goes as a debt. So that $700 or $800 a month, whatever it is that I pay for that house, that goes against me in debt, and it doesn't help me in income at all. So it makes it harder to buy a second home and keep a first one as a rental. Or if you're looking to buy a multifamily home, which multifamily homes are typically more expensive than single-family homes, and it can actually be very advantageous to get a multifamily home, because a lot of times the rent that you'll collect from renting out that coach house, that apartment above the garage, that in-law suite, a lot of times that might pay your entire mortgage. You might be able to live for free, and whatever money you would have been paying towards your living expenses, well, you can now invest that or save that for a rainy day or do whatever else with it. But a lot of times you may not qualify for that mortgage because you can't, even though the home you want to buy has the ability to generate income and you have the ability to rent out those rooms, you wouldn't be able to actually count that, or that wouldn't be taken into consideration when getting that mortgage, and this program kind of changes that. Now, we'll kind of read through it, and I do think this is going to be tough. Like, if I'm thinking about buying a home, and I put an ad on Craigslist, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to buy this house next month. Does anybody want to be my tenant? Personally, if I were looking for a place to rent, a lot of home purchases fall through. I don't know that I would sign a lease and rent from somebody who might be buying a house in a month. I would want to see the unit now, and I would probably want to get under contract now. And I think somebody who's maybe going to buy a house, I just don't see that situation working out. Who I think this would be perfect for is maybe you rent with a roommate, and you'd like to buy a home, and you'd like your roommate to come with you and continue renting from you, and you guys can kind of share expenses or whatever else. In the past, you wouldn't have been able to, even if your roommate says, yeah, I'm going to come along with you, I'll pay you $500 in rent, that $500 would, in the past, would play no role into, the underwriting process and looking at whether you could afford that house. Well, with this program, we'll kind of read how it works, but with this program, if you have a signed lease from, say, your roommate, and he agrees, I'll rent this in-law suite from you for $500 a month, you can actually use, I believe it's 75% of, in this example, that $500 to kind of help your situation and help your debt to income ratio in the underwriting process. So HomeReady's mortgages, accessory unit income, and border income flexibilities help to meet the diverse needs of today's home buyers by expanding access to creditworthy low-income buyers. HomeReady recognizes the income from accessory units and borders can be a steady source of income for many homeowners, from millennials to seniors. That's why HomeReady includes both types, with proper documentation as a part of qualifying income. So you're able to use this speculative future income as qualifying income to get a mortgage. Accessory unit income requirements. An accessory unit is a separate dwelling as identified by the appraisal with a kitchen and a bathroom. So you're not going to be able to rent out a spare bedroom, right? You're not going to be able to say, oh, my roommate's going to move into the second bedroom. You can't do that. The house has to have something that qualifies as a separate dwelling. So that could be, it could be a 2-flat, it could be a 3-flat, it could be an apartment above the garage, it could be a basement of an apartment, some type of in-law suite, coach house. But it does have to be like a separate living space with a kitchen and a bathroom. They don't specify here that it has to have a separate entrance, which is interesting. Additional information related to the accessory units is provided in the Selling Guide, section B4-1.3-05. I'll link to this document if you guys want to check it out, and you guys can look at this in further detail. Improvements section of the Appraisal Report. Income generated from an accessory unit can be considered rental income under the HomeReady in accordance with our standard rental income guidelines. So they give a couple of scenarios that kind of outline what this would look like. So a couple is purchasing a 1-unit property that has a separate apartment over the garage, which includes a functioning kitchen and bathroom. They have a tenant who is ready to execute a lease agreement to rent the property after purchase. The lease agreement indicates that the rent for the property will be $550. The rental income that can be considered for qualifying purposes is $412.50. $550 rent listed in the agreement multiplied by 0.75, so you're essentially able to qualify 75% of the rental income to account for any vacancy or loss equals $412. So the reason they're not giving you the $550, and you should be responsible and do this, but they're counting on, look, every month when you collect the rent, you should be putting some of this rent away for a rainy day. So with my rental property, the money that comes in, I don't spend it. I put it in an account, and then when the toilet goes bad, or someone throws a rock through the window, or you need a new roof, or a new furnace, or the pipes in the wall explode, you got some money put away to cover those expenses. I actually got an email from my property manager today, and I got bubbling in the ceiling, which I'm like, oh shit, that's going to be something expensive. Not only am I going to have to pay a plumber, but probably going to have to replace the drywall. Man, these people I got in now have been, I hate to say a fucking nightmare. Things, a lot of people have much worse situations, but man, I had the best tenants in there for like 4 years. They paid rent on time all the time. Early on, they bugged me with leaking the sink that was never leaking, and I had to go over there a couple times and replace cartridges sink cartridges just to appease them. But man, these people now, it seems like, every month it's something. And it's Section 8, which always seems to come with more headaches, but I'm getting sidetracked here. The full mortgage payment on the subject property, PITIA, is included as a liability in the buyer's liabilities shown below. So borrower's income $6,000 a month. Their liabilities are $3,100 a month. So the ratio is 51.66%, which makes them not eligible. Under this situation, the rental income from the accessory unit is $412.50. That brings their income from $6,000 up to $64,1250. Their liabilities are $3,100 a month, and that brings the ratio down to 48.34%. I think 51% might be kind of that cutoff. But you can kind of see in this situation, being able to rent that unit above the garage just barely gets them under the ability to qualify for that home. Let's see, note, if the borrower does not have a lease rental document, lenders may obtain a Fannie Mae single-family comparable rent schedule from the appraiser. Although the form applies to a single-family investment property, Fannie Mae will accept use of this form with an explanation from the appraiser that the estimated market rent for the rental of an accessory unit on a 1-unit principal residence property, and that the information reported on the form is specific to the accessory unit. Samples from the intended for additional purposes only, depending on other risk factors not shown. So this makes a little bit more sense, because like I kind of set this conversation up from the beginning, getting somebody to sign a lease on a property that you don't yet own or control and that you probably can't show to tenants is going to be kind of difficult. Like if I'm going to rent an apartment, I want to see it, and if you don't own the property, you can't let me in and show me the property. And I'm kind of surprised that you'd even be allowed to execute a lease with somebody on a property that you don't even own in the first place. So what this says, and this makes a lot more sense and seems to make the process, at least in my opinion, a lot smoother, is you don't necessarily need to have a signed lease. I imagine it looks better if you do. But if the appraiser says, okay, this apartment above the garage typically rents for $550, it seems like they'll accept that as well. So boarder income requirements, up to 30% of the qualifying income can come from a boarder. So, you know, you can't buy a 3-unit and, you know, 50% of the money that you need to pay for that place is going to come from renters. That wouldn't be allowed, but up to 30% can. And the borrower must provide documentation for at least 9 of the most recent 12 months, average over 12 months, and documentation of shared residency for the past 12 months. So the sample or the example they give, for example, number 2, boarder income, a single woman plans to purchase a new home. She has a roommate sharing, okay, so this is exactly kind of the situation I was kind of envisioning. She has a roommate sharing living quarters with her for the past 12 months, and a roommate plans to live in a newly purchased home. The roommate pays $375 per month in rent. The borrower has provided documentation to validate the 12 months prior shared residency. She has canceled checks to document the payment of $375 from the roommate for 10 of the most recent 12 months. The boarder income can be considered for qualifying purposes is $375 multiplied by 10 months, received $3,750. Because the borrower is unable to document a 12-month history, this amount is divided over 12 months, $3,750 divided by 12 months. The total monthly boarder income that can be considered is $3,1250. So in this situation, the borrower's income is $6,000, liabilities $3,100. Again, they're not eligible because that brings them up to 51.66%. However, with that boarder income of $312 a month, that gets them just under down to 49.11%. Let's see, samples for blah, blah, blah. Boarder income may be underwritten in DU or manually. For information on boarder income, refer to Selling Guidesection. So I actually learned about this. I was kind of keeping an eye on Haro, help a reporter out, and I saw a reporter was looking for people to comment on the story, or people who are planning on using this program to kind of provide a quote or what their situation's like for a story that she's writing about this. This is actually a pretty big change, and I think there's probably a lot of millennials out there who are living with roommates, but who would be interested in buying their first home and building some equity. You know, I know a lot of millennials, a lot of millennial couples are not getting married, but are living together. And that's, you know, I personally don't really have an interest in getting married, but me and my girlfriend, you know, live together. And she doesn't pay me rent. She lives here for free, which is kind of a sticking point that we've kind of argued about a little bit. But I'm getting way too much into my personal life here. But point being, like, if I was going to buy another house and she paid me $350 a month in rent, you know, that's something that could qualify me to buy something that I might otherwise kind of be on the fence with buying. So anyhow, I thought this was kind of interesting. I thought this was a pretty big change. I've never really heard of anything like this working in the past. And maybe I'll shoot this over to, I've been enjoying Graham Stephan. He's a real estate agent, real estate investor. He does a lot of videos. Lately he's been doing a lot of personal finance stuff, but in the past he's done a lot of stuff on like house hacking and rental properties and things like that. I'd be curious to kind of hear his input on this because he's much more of an expert in real estate. But if any of you guys are like in the real estate industry, have heard anything about this, know anything about this, if there's anything I kind of misinterpreted, feel free to chime in the comments section below. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys watching. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up. If you are not subscribed to the channel, hit that subscribe button below. And we'll catch you in the next video. Later, guys.